Welcome to the Mystical Motherhood Podcast. This is Chelsea, and I want you to create a happy family. I use my background in Western and Eastern medicine, birth, and ancient yogic practices to help the modern mother learn how to live a healthier life and create conscious children. This is your guide to fertility, conception, pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and the early childhood years. Are you ready to live the life of your dreams? Imagine what it would feel like to want a baby so badly and prepare your body, mind, and soul for over a year, only to find out that your husband doesn't want the baby and that he's not prepared and he's not even sure he wants to be in the relationship anymore. That's what's going on with Katerina in episode number 29 of Mystical Motherhood's podcast. She's really looking at her relationship with her partner and whether or not she can do the work with him and help him to become the man he's about to be or wanting to be, while also going through her own growth. Perhaps you can relate to this and apply it to other relationships in your life. Please write in to mysticalmotherhood.com if you would like to be a guest or you know of any guests, or if you have any questions or concerns. The book is available on Amazon. Thank you for coming. It's like I hear, I'm ready to move forward with this. Like, okay, when are we going to get past this? When are we going to get past this? Like, let's take some steps.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, like that. Like, let's skip. It's like there's a part of you that wants to almost skip forward 3 years. Not 3 years, but like if you would take a stone, they're showing me, and you'd throw the stone, you'd be like, let's skip the lake and just head over the other side,
Yeah.
What's going on?
It got better, but it's just, there's been, I think it's also beneficial. There's been a lot of communication, and it's been actually good because, I think for the most part, in my mind, I thought it was okay, but I really did get away from the whole intimacy part of just us two, So my whole kind of objective was, getting pregnant and just focusing on that. And then my friend was telling me, she's like, Kat, I do see you. She's like, if you got pregnant, you could be that mother that kind of not forgets about everything else, but you'll put, all the energy into a child. I was like, yeah, I understand that. And she's like, and sometimes you would neglect your relationship or anything else. I was like, understandable. That's fine. But I also think this is a huge learning curve, because, I really got to see our conversations, like I said, got really deep, which deep meaning I feel like there was sludge being moved out, it went I don't even know, it went deep,
energetic sludge. It's the same thing as you're working, when we do things and I say, maybe I see blackness moving out of you, all that's real. And so we'll talk afterwards about the ultimate relationship and then about the blackness you're seeing. Just a second. Keep going.
So basically, that's basically what it was. Just it's black, sludge, and just all this I don't know. It was just all this just moving out and just it's just exhausting too. It's exhausting, but it's also you start surrendering so much where it's just I just want to be free. I just want to be happy. And it's slowly, it's getting to a point of just freeness and lightness and happiness. So a lot of it was, Josh, it's mostly communication and intimacy. which for me, it was where like I said, I thought we were okay, we were good there, but to him, to my intimacy level was not like, as much as he needed.
Interesting.
And
Okay, because it's usually the other way around.
yeah, I
It's
know.
usually the male that like doesn't give the intimacy. At least that's what we would assume.
Right. Yes. And I was like, he's a very, not emotional, but he's a Pisces. So if that means anything, like he's very, he needs the touch, he needs to feel, he needs the love. And where me, I love, I love differently. I don't need the constant touch and, everything. Yeah. So it's like flipped.
Yeah, but it's good learning because, I mean, it's so two things. Is there anything else you want to add in before I start?
No, that's like that's kind of where things are at this point.
Okay, so there's two things I want to touch into that are like really, really important. One, I want to talk about something called the Hieros Gamos, which is what I've been experiencing, experiencing, and also it's going to be included in the next book, Fertile. And it's the creation of the third force between the couples, which is really, really important when trying to become pregnant. And it's actually really not talked about enough in enough places. It's actually talked about in the Mary Magdalene book, but I'm actually beginning to experience it. And so I can write about it now and like explain it in a way that's real rather than like a book. Does that make sense? I want to talk about that. And then second, I want to talk about all of these things that we need. Like, it's so important, and like, you should honor yourself right now. It's like, when you have a child, whoever that child comes, right, you're working through all of these things now. And these are so critical. Like, all of the relationship things, like, you could literally get into the marriage and have like 2 kids and leave.
Yeah.
And that's not good or bad. It's just, it might not be what you were hoping for,
Right.
And I was just talking about this with somebody. And it's something we don't really talk about. Like, I didn't know what kind of mother I would be. And I really care about my kids. But then I'm talking from my own perspective, but like, I'm not the type of mom that wants to go to a mom's group and talk about mom things. Like, that's my absolute nightmare, to go and talk about like Billy and Joe and go to the playground, But I didn't really know that about myself. So the friend that's saying you might be obsessed with your child, like, I've been at home with my kids, but I'm not obsessed with my children. I love them and I have my own thing going on, and I think it's really important. But it's almost like you should create kind of a list of like the assumptions of who you think you'll be as a mom, and then, does that make sense? And then who do you think you'll really be?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And to my knowledge, like, I think of course my energy will go to a child and like care for it. But this is, I always think like, don't ever forget the person that you created this child with, and I don't think I'll be that mother where I'm just going to be, kind of like you mentioned, like, of course I'll be home with the kids, but like, I want to have my own identity.
It gets hard though.
Right.
And it gets hard. And like, we all say all these things, but it's like, you have to establish what you're doing right now fully. Because if that's not established at all, and there's still issues around him not wanting to be touched now, like, it gets next level when you have a kid. Like, my kids have taken over the bed. It's like they want to suck on you. Like, I have so many moms writing me like, how do I get them off my breast? And I'm like, how do I get them out of my room? How do I, what do I do? And it's like, well, there's this thin line, and your relationship has to come almost first. And it's
Right.
like, and it really does if you want to keep it, because like there's always going to be this. So let's talk about the third entity that can either be a child or love.
Okay.
So when two people come together, they create a third entity. And that entity, I mean, like, it's like they could create a business. They could create an incredible amount of love. They could create like a house. They could create like a child. You know, like those two that they create a third entity with them. Then sometimes it's even like a demon.
Right.
You know, some you have to think of like when you could go through your whole family and be like, well, what did that person create? What did that person create? And you can see it within relationships. And if you start to think of it, it's like the Holy Trinity. It's the male, the feminine, and then whatever they create.
Right.
So when you're trying to create a child and you want to bring, like we've talked about this kind of in another episode, where if all of the chakras are aligned and you're coming from a place of deep, deep unconditional love, like unconditional, something that's not a human love, you're going to create a third entity that's like almost like the love of God on earth, which then either can be created into that form of love, which is given out to more people, or it's created into the child. So it's
Right.
actually a huge gift, the bomb he dropped, because it's going to get to the darkness that's actually between you, which you didn't know it even existed.
Yeah. Literally, yeah, it's been like, all of a sudden it just went flip-flopped. And, and I was like, and I told him, I was like, I have to be grateful for your honesty and, what you saying, like, and, how truthful you are. I have to, I can't be mad at that. I have to respect that. And I was like, and, it's a lot of things that I just wasn't maybe like aware of, or maybe I just like kept kind of just like pushing it aside.
So what were the kind of things, like what are the top 3 things he said that he needed more of that you weren't giving enough of?
Definitely communication.
Okay.
Fun. Intimacy was definitely something else. Just, like more sexual. And then a lot more love.
Okay. And that's also what we were talking about with like friends, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I did this when I was going deep into my spiritual work, and as like a lot of women are going to do this. Like you don't have to though. Like we can all become very aware of it. Like when you start on the path to awakening, there is almost an isolation that can happen. Unless you have some sort of sangha or you have some sort of community of other people that are just like you, but then you get in that community and you're like, you're in your own little spiritual world, right? And like, that's probably, I mean, and it can bring out the best in you. It can also like, it can begin to, and you can begin to say, oh, I see this part of me now. It's always been there, but it may be amplified through the
Yeah.
times that, you might have always been like this, but now it's like all of these parts of you that maybe other people don't accept the way, it will be amplified.
Yeah.
So that you can decide if this is who I am, or I can possibly change for this person.
Right. Exactly.
And some of that was amplified, like with the friends and going inwards and like the lack of communications, because it's like probably part of you is like, well, you wouldn't understand what I'm talking about anyway, right? I mean, some of it's like, well, you don't know what I'm going through. Like that's the typical when you're going through the awakening process and finding out who you are. And this is all over the globe. People are going to start to they're going to start to awaken and change, or they're going to go through a really dark night of the soul and get super depressed and not change. And so that's what's happening right now is the people that have done the work, they're going to soar up. And the people who haven't done the work, that's what these eclipses were about that we went through. The people who haven't done the work, they're going to go dark. I really, really feel that, and I see it. And so all of these things that he's showing you, that's that third entity that we want to clear today. So it's like almost like you can create this Hieros Gamos, which you're going to look up something called the Hieros Gamos. It's on my Instagram, but it's this third energy where the male and the female kind of turn into their Christed form, and they've worked through all of their stuff, and they're able to almost mirror just heaven on earth. That's what it is.
Okay.
And it's hard to even understand until there's an experience of like, this is a possibility. And
Right.
It's when the male and the female have both equally began to do the level of work that's required to clear themselves enough to hold that type of energy through the love of the other. And so it's good to do this kind of work that you're doing. And it's not bad, the things he's saying. So let me just think about. Close your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And when you begin to shut down with him, which is the shutting down with mom and the shutting down, with the friends and the changing, but it's almost like this, you have to be shown this part of yourself of like, oh, I don't just do this with mom.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just doing this with my friends. I'm doing this with him, but you are changing and you may not. And you may find somebody that you want to, you may find that like, it's because there's could be two reasons for this. Your frequencies aren't the same anymore. And so perhaps you need to look deep into yourself about this. Perhaps, you have changed and your frequency begins to change and he's just feeling you pulling away. And because you are changing at a more rapid pace and wanting to grow and he's not. So your lack of communication and kind of pulling away is like, keep up with me.
Yeah.
Keep up with me. Is it that? So this is a question to you we're going to ask. Is it that, or is it that this is a part of you that you need to meet him where he's at? And that, in reality, this is a part of you that needs to be cleared out.
So I honestly see it as both. I do. I think because he's mentioned to me, which is, funny. He's like, I don't know what's wrong with me. He's like, my mind just like can't stop racing. He's like, I might have like depression. It's just funny as you said that.
Yes.
And he's always been like overactive, like his mind, just everything in his mind, he's constantly wants, to be moving and doing things.
That's a form of depression.
It is.
You know that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's because it's funny because it's I finally just like started looking into it,
It's called there's a name for it. Give me a second, I'll remember. But it's a very strong form of depression, especially in the Aquarian age. It's too much or too little.
But it's amplified.
Yes, and it will be amplified. It'll continue to be amplified for the next 10 years if he doesn't start to work on it. Right.
And so that's one of the issues. And then secondly, I think he does feel this, I'm kind of more kind of lighter in a sense. And then he's heavy and dark. Mm-hmm. And he sees the difference, and
he feels it.
Yes. And I think
he feels you moving at a faster pace. And it's like when he does that, he energetically, what I see is it's like what I saw when we talked before is you're 5 steps ahead of him.
Yeah.
And he holds you back or you're trying to pull him forward and he's just not going to move then. So it's you have to make the decision of, do I want to keep pulling this man forward? And you can love him and you can create intimacy with him, but it's not your responsibility to make him feel safe and loved. It's his responsibility to make himself feel that. And you should, show your partner love and you should feel intimacy, but he also, I'm going to guess he doesn't give it to you as much as he thinks he does.
No, he's doesn't.
Asking for something he's not giving, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he's projecting onto you
what he's
lacking too.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. 100% right. And this has like been the the going back and forth. And like I said, the one thing I said to him that I've never heard him like say anything else, like he literally stopped talking. I was like, if you can't give me 100% and you have to deep dive and like do your own soul searching, and for 1 second, if nothing comes up, if it doesn't come up like the future kids positive, then I was like, you have to let this go and you have to leave. And
You have to,
like,
did you say you have to leave the relationship? Is that what you meant by that?
yep, I said that. I was like, you have to just let me know, and I'm like, we have to just.
But he did. He did let you know just last week.
Right.
He did, sweetie. He let you know.
Right.
So, I mean, it's more like you're doing, so he did let you know, he did tell you. And it's like, so either this is, you're back to making the decision, and it could be that you're going to have a lot of healing relationships, but you're still in a crossroads. Because you can go light speeds ahead of him and get there. But he's not necessarily going to change his frequency at the pace that you are. And he did tell you. He said
Right.
to you, I can't keep up with you. I feel these things. I feel like you're not giving me all these things. But in reality, like, he needs to give those things to himself, and then he wouldn't ever be asking for them, because if he had them within him, he'd be giving them to you.
So, it's funny. He said, he's like, my fear is if like, we have a child, whatever, and then all of a sudden I just can't take it and I just leave.
It's a big, huge fear.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things about relationships, like, we always think in relationships, like, oh, this isn't going to be amplified later. This is a little tiny thing.
Oh, yeah, no.
I'm not trying to change. I'm just trying to, all I'm doing right now, just so you know in the session, is I'm just going to be a mirror of all of these thoughts right back to you, to give you more to think about or to feel into. So I have no opinion on what you should do, nor do I'm just wanting you to know I have zero, unless you ask. But like, I'm just reflecting back. What was it I know what I'm saying. So with this, it's like, he may be here now. Let's say like there's a little dropper of like his biggest fears and emotions, like intimacy, all these different things, right? And leaving. The big one is like, I'm afraid I'll walk out on you. So let's say he just said that. That's a little fear now, but like, let's amplify that with 2 toddlers. Let's amplify the situation. Let's amplify it with the age of Aquarius, with 1,000 social media posts coming at you and a level of depression you cannot handle in a practice that he does not have. So the earth the intensity is the frequency of the amount of energy that's coming down to planet Earth is real. Anybody who doesn't think it, they're going a little crazy right now. It's real. Like we're amplifying so people can either catch up or not, keep up or move on, So you can't ignore the things he's saying and hope that they're going to get better. Anyone who's listening who has a relationship with somebody that you're worried about, don't ignore those things. I've done it. I'm telling you from a place. I ignored it. And I was like, oh, this wasn't a little thing.
Right.
This was way bigger than I thought. And it was underneath the men, or even within you, whatever your things are. Unless you start to work it out, whoever's going to do the work, then great, you can get through that. But then you're going to naturally change frequencies.
Right.
And either he's going to keep up with you or he's not.
Yeah.
But it's not that fear. I don't think it's like necessarily. I mean, it probably comes. We'd have to go into his whole childhood, but like, I would love to see where that comes from his childhood.
Yeah, I'm curious myself.
What was his parents like?
His parents are like, they're like, they're really nice. So, and he had a good, like, you know, they basically like took care of all their kids. Like, he's a middle child. And I don't know. I don't know. Like, the mom, I have a feeling, had to do a little bit with it because, well, obviously, but she like had her, you know, Josh's brother first, and then they had their
Was the mom always pulling him forward?
I think so.
Okay, let me just give you a little mirror, okay? Because he was the second child, right? You said?
Yeah, he's the middle.
I feel there's a possibility that his mom also kind of dragged him around energetically, like kind of try to keep up. You know, does that, I don't know. I'm just seeing it. Tell me if I'm right. I'm not even getting any names, but
Yeah.
there's some resentment with the way you're acting and the way his mother was.
That can make sense.
So let's go like I mean, I don't want to ask names, but I'm saying like, did being the second child and like did he like move slower as a child? Did he like need extra help? Did he have to go to schools? You know what I'm saying? Was there anything about that?
No,
or
so
being in the household?
With that is he never moved slow because she always mentioned, like, they laugh. She's like, I had to take Josh to the doctor and like say, what's wrong with him? Because he's so too much. Like, he could never like just like relax and sit still. Like, he had to be constantly like, you know, like either like, you know, doing something with his sister, his brother, or like he was you know, he was really good at baseball. Like, he was constantly like on the go with his friends, like growing up. So that he was never behind. And Josh would never, that's Josh's thing. He always has to prove something to, you know, everybody. Like, he can handle everything in a sense.
Was that to prove to his family, you think?
I think so. Yeah. And it still is. It's still that way.
Did the jumping around make him like get bored with things quickly?
Yeah.
And did he attend, like, how many jobs has he had? How many places does he move around? Like, is that like a part of that internal fear of like, I think I'm going to leave you one day?
See, his jobs haven't been that like crazy.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
So it's just his behavior and the way he moves in general.
In general, right.
I mean, it's really like there's nothing. I mean, we can clear the conversations and we can work through the energy of the blackness and we can do those sort of things, but it's kind of like it's in your power chakra of like, can I take the time and energy to bring his energy up to get us to a point that we could be able to start a family? Do I have the energy for that, or do I just skip forward and get what I want? It's like, and it's nothing. I mean, all I can do is reflect back to you is, you know, and it's not even like people are like create a pro or con list. Bullshit. No, it's like,
I know.
This is not a pro con thing. You know, a lot of people are like, just create that. And it's like, well, that's from the mind. It's not from the heart.
Right, exactly. And, you know, I don't know. I
mean, this is what you've been doing for a long time. So we know from reading your energy that you've been pulling him along for a really long time. Probably since you met. And not like a lot of women don't do that for the male. And a lot of, you know, but there's also other relationships where the male does that for the female in their own way. Like, there's probably some things there's things that he's pulled you along with too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But like recently it's been, it has been, you know, kind of in that sense. And I think all this work that, like, you know, I started doing and then like working with you, and I think there's like something inside of him that like, you know, not jealous, but like he's like he's just not like expressing it. He's like, you know, meaning like I need work like that, and he's just also like, well, you know, I see you doing all this work, and then you know you don't you know give me that energy and like love back. You put all this time into this, but you can't put time into like me, you know.
But that's also okay. That is could be true, and yes, it could be true that you're not giving the intimacy level that he requires or needs, and the more of whatever you want, you have to give. So he's not giving that either. I know it right now.
Yeah.
But that's the problem is when you go into this fights of like, well, you're not going to give it, you're not going to give it, you're not going to give it. Nobody gets it. And exactly. So somebody has to give in at some point. But if you're growing and growing and growing and growing, and then his frequency is that black sludge and yours is getting lighter and lighter, he's going to do everything possible to bring you back into the matrix.
Right.
I was just talking about this. So like I'm moving away and I'm leaving like my whole life is changing, and everybody that could possibly send me an email or make a concern or make a worry has created it. And I'm like, oh, this is everybody that doesn't want that. I mean, it could be on a subconscious level, on a frequency level, on a matrix level of like, let me see what I can do to not let your light go, you know? So I'm getting all those emails, and I either have to fully ignore those people or say, you cannot speak like this. You know, like I'm making a decision to move on with my life and to create something that's lighter.
Right.
And so anytime you do that, there's all kinds of ways that people are going to say, well, you're not meeting my needs. What about me? You know, like, or what about my fears? What about all my fears? Because you don't have those same fears anymore. They don't exist, maybe. And so you're like, what are you talking about? Let's just have a baby and feel light and love.
Right. And he's like, you know, I'm so scared of the future. I'm like, you don't even know what the future is. Like, what are you scared about? You know?
And so what you can say to him is, look, if you want to have a future with me, you need to start to do the work.
Yeah.
And you need to start to work with somebody.
Yeah, I told him.
And say you're projecting a lot of, I can give you more intimacy, but you're going to have to give it back.
Right.
And that's the truth. If he's telling you you're not giving it, he's not giving it either.
Right.
If he's not saying he's not getting it, he's not giving it. Because if he were to give it more, you'd give it back.
Exactly.
That's the way it works. Whatever you want, you give. If you want to have more sex, you give more sex. If you want to be more loved, you give more love. Because then, you know, there's no lack.
Right.
There's only lack when you're not giving.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, a lot of sense. It does.
And so you're not moving at a fast rate. You guys are married. You've been together for years. I mean, like you know, like it's natural to have a baby. You're not moving too fast.
Right.
And so sometimes people don't necessarily want the same things in a marriage, and it's shocking. You know, and that might be like a male marrying a woman that doesn't want a child even though they planned on it.
Yeah.
It shocks the person because it's like, I don't know you anymore.
Right.
I don't know who you are anymore. And so it's almost like you can baby him and baby him and baby him and baby him and say, I'm so sorry. But say, look, if you're going to talk about leaving me, then we need to just there almost has to be some boundaries with you too and what you allow him to say, because it's like you're doing all this work and you're trying to have a baby and he's saying, you're not enough still.
Right.
You're not enough.
Right.
Which is the universe saying, okay, are you? Are you enough? Like the one person that needs to lift you up and say, this is enough is testing you big time.
Right.
And so none of these conversations should be taken lightly, because people will say their deepest, darkest things in those moments. And then they might not be said again, but you need to remember so that in 5 years from now, you're not going to be like, gosh, dang it. I knew this. But sometimes we have to live out that karma, and we have to live out those experiences in order to get rid of them, or, and it might be that we have to experience it that way. But it might be that you can just say, this is whatever you decide, it's not the wrong decision.
Right.
But no, you'll be helping him become who he's supposed to be.
Right. And I see that. I do. It's just, it's, for whatever the reason, this is coming up, and it's never a bad thing, obviously. I get it. It's meant to come up when it's meant to come up. There's reasons why. It's just, right, figuring out, is my energy there still to keep doing it?
Well, close your eyes. And I want you to see, with the moving forward, do you see yourself pulling him along? And almost also behind him, kind of with a whip, come on, right. In a good way, or in a bad way, whatever it is, but.
Right now, with everything, yes, I do.
Do you think there's a different way to go about it that you're willing to do? Are you willing to slow down your pace to help him feel at ease with life? What's your heart say, not your mind? Are you willing to slow down your pace to help him feel at ease with your growth? What does your soul feel about that?
Of course, yes, I can.
Do you want to do that, though? If that was me, if somebody was asking me to slow down my spiritual growth.
Right, but.
It's you can't stop that.
Right, exactly. So I was like, how could I even do that?
You can't do it. That's the answer.
Right. Okay.
You can't do it. So either he's going to have to keep up with you.
Right.
And I really think this is, everybody will have different ideas about relationships and different, different advice, because there is a rapid growth going on the earth and there's a rapid decline. And some of us might be in relationships where both of us are on rapid scale growths, and some of us might be in relationships where one is not growing at the same rate. And so he's going to have to make the choice to be I don't want to feel depressed anymore, and work on himself, or you're going to keep growing and there's going to be, a possible gap.
Right.
It's in Kundalini, it's called the cold depression.
Okay.
You can look that up for him and get some articles. If you look up 3HO cold depression, I think I've talked to you about it before, but it's two types of depression. It's a really, really fast depression where you move so quickly and you don't know what's going on. And then when things slow down, you're I am so depressed. And so what that does is it makes you unable to even function or concentrate on life, or even take on the normal responsibilities of I need to have a child because there's so much going on in him right now.
Yeah, and that's basically what it's been.
Yeah, or there's a depression where everything's too slow.
No, it's fast. Lightning speed fast.
And it's the type of times that, and it's going to be more and more amplified according to Yogi Bhajan by 2035. So it's just, it's not, this isn't going to be something that, if you're feeling this out there, if you're listening, that this level of depression that people are going to feel at this darkness is can be an awakening process, or it'll bring them super down. And it's you've got to keep up in this age, because the amount of pressure and the energy that's coming on the planet beyond that, with all the social media and technology, it's going to keep moving faster and faster and faster and faster. So our brains think we have to keep up, but we don't have, if he doesn't take the tools, or he's going to fall apart.
Exactly.
So what if you said to him, will you start to do some things with me to work on yourself?
I think he will be open to it, and I just have to, I mentioned it before, but I never like pushed it because this this was never the intensity that it has been,
Right now, what's going on? Right.
Right. So I don't think he will be opposed to it. It's just I don't even know where to start to, give him the tools, or is it, I'm like, can you, or is it just better for you to kind of go, talk to someone and like deal with this, at your own pace?
Well, he's not necessarily going to, like, if he talks to someone, it almost has to be someone that he chooses to,
Right.
because it's not going to be that, like you, God chose you to come, like, it was not an accident you came to me. And that was
Right.
like an aligned thing because you were asking. So it's like he has to go to someone who matches him. And that
Right.
person will come in when he's ready and
Exactly.
willing to do the work. And you can say to him, like, because you can't go find him somebody and
No.
say, this is the person you're going to do the work with, and then it'll be really, really great. Sometimes they do naturally come in that way. But, I mean, you can invite him to go to your things, but a lot of men might be, like ashamed or embarrassed or feel silly.
Right.
But there's got to be a point that he
Something.
kind of like starts to keep up with you, or there'll be a big gap.
Right.
A lot of people have relationships with big gaps and they like the separate lives because they like, like some obviously not everyone is on the same spiritual understanding and they like the separate lives, and that's okay, but then there's got to be like high intimacy or a lot of things in common otherwise. And so it's like you've got to look at what you have in common that you can, that if you're dedicated to staying and making this work and keeping and making him help him work through his things, which could be a beautiful thing.
Right.
But you have to be like, shit, okay, here, I'm not only like, now I'm going to serve you. And you have to make that decision. Are you ready to do that? And this is for anyone who's listening. Like, are you willing to save your mom? Are you willing to, because they actually have to want to save themselves, or you're not, like, no,
Right.
you can't. First off, you can't do the work for them.
No. Right.
And if they're asking you to change or do something that would relieve their stress in a way that disregards your own personal identity or boundaries, then that's not, they're asking you to heal them, and that's not your responsibility.
Right. One.
And so
One.
you just have to look at, like, is he wanting to heal himself? And he's wanting to, like, get to yourself. You got to, like, have that conversation with him. Like, do you want to do the work with somebody, and so we can begin to work together side by side, or are you assuming that I'm going to change to make you happy?
That's a good. That's a good.
Because what it sounds like is he wants you to change to make him happy so that he doesn't feel so overwhelmed by how fast the world's moving, which is really just how fast he's moving.
And you, like you said, that's it can't change with me because I'm not, there's no possibility for me to change because I'm not going to let that happen,
Right.
I'm not.
And you can give more intimacy. You can make
Right.
more dinners. You can do more things like that. But
Right. I'm going
typically
to
he has to do it too.
exactly. You're 100% right there. And I see a lot of that, like the frustrations that like come out that like he might, kind of like, say and do, but I'm like, in reality, Josh, like, think about it. Like, you don't provide the same thing back. But like, just because like you don't see it and you're not acknowledging it, like you're thinking like, the whole world is against you in a sense.
Well, and he's also churning in his own blackness. He's churning his own butter, they're saying. Like,
Yeah.
he's not moving. It's like he's moving really fast, but he's really not moving anywhere energetically.
He's not.
And so it's like he's like, would you imagine I always see him in an old fashioned thing. I see this like past life. I see him like churning butter, like with his feet. And it's like he's grabbing at all these things he wants in life, but he energetically just getting himself in a hole. And so, like, what would he do? Any meditations with you? Would he? I mean, what you can do is sit down with him and say these things. Look, I can do all these things for you. I can up my intimacy. I can, make more dinners. I'll wear more lingerie. Whatever those dreams are, and make that list of like, what is his? A good thing to ask him is, what is your fantasy?
Right.
What is your fantasy? Is he willing to give you your fantasy? Because I promise you shouldn't just be giving him his.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And like, that's a really important thing to like, what is your sexual fantasy? What does that look like? Can I create that for you? Because he's always going to be yearning for that.
Right.
And then, so that's one thing to talk about. Another thing would be, like to make it really, really clear that it's not your responsibility to make him happy. And you need to draw a very hard line with him, just like we would say to our parents. I don't live with you anymore because it's not my responsibility to make you happy, mom and dad.
Yep.
It's not my responsibility to both your sister or your brothers or anybody, or your cousins. It's not my responsibility to take care of your children or to make you a house or to give you money. It's like all these boundaries. It's like, what did you, and also reread your vows. Like, what in your vows did you promise? Did you promise till death do us part? What did you promise?
So funny, because, like, I said that, I was like, I brought that up, and Josh is like, just because, like, he's like, he's going after, his response was, like, society, right? It's like, just because we, society says that all that, happens, is like, if you can't figure it out and you're not happy, why not let the other person go to let them be happy? And I was like, I understand where you're coming from. I get it. But like, when you went through this whole marriage, what did you think was going to happen? I was like, did you not think then, like,
well, that's the problem with like conscious, like, I mean, I realize this with writing Mystical Motherhood is like, this is back to creating a baby. None of us ever think about like, you should actually be like creating the baby and the idea of what you are going to like. And this is the same with marriage or any relationship or any business thing you go into is like, what is our expectations? When we have a child, even in the book, I say, okay, talk about the education of the child 5 to 10 years before you even get there. Because when that happens, or will the child eat meat? Will the thing, it's like with the marriage is like, well, are we going to be vegetarians? Are we going to do this? Are we going to live in one place? Do we want to travel? And we don't ever think about that.
No, we don't. And and literally my question to him was like, did you not think about this? And like, he didn't really, like, he was kind of like stumped. I'm like, well, like what? Like
to think about having a child, you mean? And like, this would be part of it?
Yeah. I was like, this is life. This is our future, But, I was like, okay. I'm just like, I don't know.
So start with those things.
Yeah.
Start with just this is really your work too, is like how, right. Do I need to and that's a real look in the mirror. Like, do I need to give more to him? Which you probably do. You can always give more, but like, okay, if you do that, is that going to make him happy?
Exactly.
And so how much, like, then will he want something? You have to look at all these different things. If I give him this, then will he say something else is lacking and I didn't give him that?
Right. Exactly.
And then when we have a child, is he telling me my future? Because it's a big deal, right? The things he's saying and the words we say count. And so is he telling me my future? So you need to like do some real deep inner landscape of your worth. And what you're willing to give up and how long you're willing to wait. Because, I mean, it's clear if you guys were to have a baby right now, he's not ready.
No.
And so then like we talked about last time, you're waiting another, let's say, I mean, you'd have to ask him, like, how long do you think it would take for you to get ready? Do you think that's an option? Like, I mean, because if you want another 2 years, that's 2 years. Let's say it's 2 years. Let's say 1 month, 1 year to 2 years. That's 1 to 2 years you could be finding the partner that you really want to. This is like that. You're still in that road. You're still in like, okay, am I willing to do this type of work for, I don't know if he's going to keep up with me.
Right.
But he has to do the work too. And the answer to all of your questions is going to be, will he do the work? Because it's not just you. He has to do it. He's the one in the sludge right now.
That makes perfect sense. And you're right. You're 100% right. Like, I don't know if I want to wait another, anymore.
Yeah. I mean, you've been waiting and it all came down to his sperm, which is, for some reason, sperm count's not up, right? Like, that's not an accident.
Sperm and the motility.
The motility, which is so funny because it's energetic motility.
Yeah.
None of this is an accident.
I know. Thank God for now, right?